I am Amber, 30 years old, and nothing prepared me for watching my brother Brandon slap my 6-year-old daughter Chloe across the face at our family reunion. Worse was hearing my father, Edward, smirk. Well, she needed to learn some shame, while my mother, Margaret, laughed along. They thought they were safe in their cruelty, but they forgot about the documentary microphone recording everything. Before I tell you how I turned my brother's life into a living hell, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you believe children deserve protection even from family. Picture this. A sunny afternoon, the kind where the air smells like barbecue and the kids are running around, their giggles bouncing off the trees. My little girl, Chloe, just 6 years old, was there, her pigtails bouncing as she played, her smile bright enough to light up the whole darn world. She's my everything. That girl. Full of spunk, curiosity, and a heart bigger than Texas. But in one gut-wrenching moment, everything changed. My brother, Brandon, a man I'd known my whole life, did the unthinkable. Right there, in front of cousins, aunts, uncles, and the whole family, he raised his hand and slapped my sweet Chloe across her little face. The sound of it. Sharp, cruel, cut through the chatter like a knife. I froze, my breath caught in my throat, as her tiny gasp echoed in my ears. I can still see her eyes, wide with shock, filling with tears she was too brave to let fall. And if that wasn't bad enough, what came next made my blood run cold. My father, Edward, the man who raised me, who I thought knew right from wrong, smirked like he was watching some kind of show. "Well," he said, his voice dripping with a meanness I'd never heard before. She needed to learn some shame. My mother, Margaret, who I always thought had a soft spot for her grandkids, didn't say a word to stop him. Instead, she laughed, as if my baby's pain was some kind of punchline. I stood there, trembling, my heart pounding like a drum. How could they? How could my own family, the people who were supposed to love and protect us, act so heartless? They thought they could get away with it, that their cruelty would just fade into the noise of the day. They thought no one would dare call them out, that we'd all just sweep it under the rug like we always had, keeping the family's secrets locked tight. But they forgot one little thing, one tiny, powerful thing. Tucked away in the corner of the room, hidden in plain sight, was a documentary microphone. It caught every word, every sound, even the slap that broke my heart. That microphone held the truth, raw and unfiltered, and it was about to change everything. Before I tell you how I took that recording and used it to shatter the perfect picture my brother painted of himself, and to break the silence this family had held onto for far too long, let me ask you something. Where are you reading this from? Are you sitting in a cozy armchair in Ohio? Or maybe sipping coffee on a porch in Georgia? Wherever you are, I'd love to know. And if you believe, like I do, that our children deserve to be protected no matter who hurts them, even if it's family, then stick with me. Subscribe to hear the rest of this story because it's one you won't forget. Folks, I've wrestled with a question that haunts me to this day, one that's echoed in my mind more times than I can count. How could they think this was normal? That moment, when my brother Brandon's hand struck my little Chloe's face, her soft cry piercing the air, my mother's laugh cutting like glass, and my father's cold words about learning shame. It didn't just break my heart. It tore down the shaky walls I'd built to pretend I'd left my past behind. The truth is, I was raised to swallow that kind of cruelty, to see it as just another day in the Thompson family. You see, growing up in our house, there was an unspoken rule, one we all learned without ever saying it out loud. Someone always had to be at the bottom so the rest could feel tall. That's how the Thompsons worked. And let me tell you, it wasn't a warm and fuzzy kind of family. I think back to those dinners around our old oak table, the kind you'd imagine filled with stories and laughter. But for me, that table was a battlefield. My father, Edward, would sit at the head, his voice booming with pride as he bragged to aunts and uncles about my brother. Brandon's top of his math class, he'd say, his chest puffed out. Got picked for the national athletic team. That boy's going places. Everyone would nod, smiling as if Brandon was the golden child sent straight from heaven. Then his eyes would slide over to me, and the air would change. "And you, Amber?" he'd say, his tone sharp enough to cut. "Still switching majors again, huh?" The table would go quiet, forks clinking awkwardly as I stared at my plate, my cheeks burning. I was maybe 15, trying to figure out who I was, but to him, I was just a disappointment. I can still hear the sting of those moments, like the time I forgot a glue stick for a school project. Such a small thing, right? But you'd think I'd committed a crime. My father scolded me in front of everyone, his voice loud enough to make the neighbors turn their heads. Meanwhile, Brandon could throw tantrums, sass back, or strut around like he owned the place, and my parents would just chuckle. "He's spirited," they'd say, or, "That's our natural leader." But me? All it took was one question. Why does Brandon get to go on vacation with his friends, and I don't? And I was labeled disrespectful, ungrateful, a problem. So I learned to keep my mouth shut. I learned to shrink, to stay quiet, to let the unfairness roll over me like a storm I couldn't stop. That's the family I came from, and that's the weight I carried when I stood there, watching my own daughter hurt by the same kind of cruelty I'd grown up with. But this time, I wasn't staying quiet. Not anymore. When I was just 19, a wide-eyed college freshman craving a kind of love I'd never known. That's when I met Ryan. He was 22, with a smile that could warm a winter's day and a gentleness that wrapped around me like a soft blanket. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, not judged, not pushed aside, not compared to anyone else. Just seen, for who I was. We fell hard and fast, and within a year, we were married. I know now we were young, maybe too young, but back then, it felt like freedom. It felt like I'd finally broken free from the weight of my family's expectations. Ryan was my escape, my safe place, my chance at something better. My parents, though? They weren't impressed. They showed up to our little wedding, sure, but the way they looked at the modest venue and my simple, off-the-rack dress said it all. Disapproval hung in the air like a storm cloud. And my brother Brandon? Oh, he gave a toast that night, grinning as he raised his glass. "Never thought Amber would find someone who could handle her?" he said with a laugh. "Good luck, Ryan." The room chuckled, but it wasn't the warm kind of laughter. It was the kind that stings, the kind that hides a jab. Still, for a while, life was good. Ryan and I set up in a tiny apartment, dreaming big dreams on a shoestring budget. I was studying communications, working part-time at a cozy little bookstore, surrounded by the smell of old pages and fresh coffee. We didn't have much, but we had each other. And when I found out I was pregnant with Chloe at 24, I thought my heart might burst. Holding her in that hospital room, her tiny fingers curled around mine, I made her a promise. "You will always know you're loved, sweet girl. Unconditionally, unapologetically." But love, as it turns out, doesn't always fix everything. By the time Chloe was 3, Ryan had changed. The man who used to make me feel safe started staying late at work, his eyes distant, his warmth fading like a fire gone cold. I found messages on his phone from a woman named Kara. At first, he denied it, but the truth came spilling out. A 6-month affair with a coworker. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said, but those words didn't mend the crack in my heart. We tried therapy, but his gaze never held mine the way it used to. By Chloe's 4th birthday, we were divorced. Just like that, I was a single mom, raising my little girl on my own, with a paycheck from my administrative assistant job at Madison Marketing that barely stretched to cover rent and childcare. I clipped coupons, sold furniture, skipped meals so Chloe could have seconds. But sometimes, even that wasn't enough. In those desperate moments, I'd swallow my pride and call my parents. When my car broke down or Chloe needed emergency dental work, they'd send money, but it always came with a price. A comment, a dig, a reminder of my failures. Men don't leave happy homes, Amber. My mother sighed over the phone when I told her Ryan and I had split. "What did you do to push him away?" Those words cut deeper than she'll ever know, echoing the same old script I'd heard my whole life. "You're not enough." Every check they sent came with a jab. Maybe if you'd made better choices, you wouldn't be in this mess, they'd say. Or, your brother never needed our help. Or my favorite, I guess not everyone's cut out to be independent. I'd say thank you, hang up, and feel like I was 10 years old again, shrinking under their judgment for forgetting something as small as a glue stick. I thought I'd escaped them, that I'd built a life free of their shadow. But there I was, still playing the role of the problem child, the one who could never quite measure up. And it wasn't just me they were hurting anymore. It was Chloe. My bright, musical, unfiltered little girl started coming home from visits with my family with questions that broke my heart. "Why does Grandpa say I talk too much?" she'd ask, her little voice so small. "Why does Uncle Brandon roll his eyes when I sing?" Or worse, "Why does Grandma say you always needed too much attention when you were little?" Each question was like a splinter, digging deeper into my soul. I tried to shield her. Lord knows I tried. I told myself family was important, that I could stand between her and their poison, that my love was enough to keep her safe. But I saw the signs. The way her shoulders tensed when we walked into my parents' house. The way she looked at Brandon with a mix of awe and fear. The way her voice got quieter, her songs softer until she stopped singing altogether around them. And still, I brought her to that family reunion. Packed our bags, told myself it was just a weekend, that maybe, just maybe, they'd see Chloe's light and love her for it. I wanted to believe they could change, that I could change, that we could be the family I'd always dreamed of. But I was wrong. They hadn't changed. Not one bit. And it wasn't until that moment when Brandon's hand struck my daughter's face, when her cry shattered the air, that I realized the truth. I'd spent my whole life surviving them, bending under their weight, trying to prove I was enough. But Chloe, my bright, beautiful girl, she wasn't meant to survive them. She was meant to be free. That was the moment everything changed. The moment I stopped being the girl who stayed quiet. The moment I became the mother Chloe deserved. In that awful moment, something inside me didn't just break. It broke open. Not in the way my family wanted. Not with me crumbling under their cruelty. No, it was like a cage I'd been locked in my whole life finally sprang free, its rusty door swinging wide. For years, I thought I had no voice in the Thompson family. I thought keeping quiet was the only way to survive, the safest way to keep the peace. But when my little Chloe, her eyes brimming with tears, looked up at me and whispered, "Did I do something wrong?" Oh, that changed everything. My heart shattered, not from weakness, but from a fire igniting inside me. That was the moment I knew I had to become the mother I never had, the one Chloe deserved. No more swallowing shame like it was my job. No more nodding along to their warped ideas of discipline. No more sacrificing my daughter's spirit just to keep the family from arguing at the dinner table. I was done. Now, you might be wondering, why didn't I walk away sooner? Why did I keep going back to that house, to those people? I'll tell you. It's because a part of me, deep down, buried under years of trying to please them, still hoped they'd accept me. A part of me believed if I worked harder, stayed quieter, proved myself enough, they'd finally see me. They'd finally say, "Amber, we're proud of you." But that day, watching Chloe's light dim under their cruelty, I realized something. It was never about me. It was never about whether I was good enough. It was about control. Their need to keep everyone in line, to silence anyone who dared question, who dared resist, who dared remember the truth. Well, let me tell you, I remember everything now. Every slight, every jab, every moment they made me feel small. And I'm done staying silent. The past doesn't get to decide Chloe's future. It doesn't get to dim her smile or quiet her song. That's not her story. I'm writing her story now. And it's going to be one of love, of courage, of a little girl who grows up knowing she's enough. Just as she is. When my brother Brandon's hand struck my little Chloe's cheek, leaving a cruel red mark, It was like the whole world froze. Time just stopped. The room went quiet, not because anyone was shocked, but because they all expected me to do what I'd always done. Nothing. My father, Edward, sat there with that smug smirk, muttering something about shame being a good lesson. My mother, Margaret, let out a laugh that cut through me like a cold wind. And Chloe, my sweet 6-year-old, stood there, her big eyes filling with tears, her tiny hands frozen, not knowing what to do. But me? For the first time in my life, I didn't stay frozen. I didn't shrink. I stood up. And I didn't sit back down. I locked eyes with Brandon, my voice steady as steel. "Touch my daughter again," I said, "and it'll be the last thing you ever do in my presence." His jaw dropped like I'd slapped him instead. My mother tried to wave it off with a nervous chuckle. "Amber, don't be so dramatic," she said, but I was already moving. I scooped Chloe into my arms, her little body trembling, her breath shallow, but she clung to me with all the strength she had. And in that moment, something new roared to life inside me. Not just anger, though, Lord, I was furious, but a kind of clarity, sharp and fierce like the world had snapped into focus. I turned to the room, my whole extended family sitting there, stunned, around a dining table littered with half-eaten casseroles and wine glasses. The Christmas music tinkling from a Bluetooth speaker suddenly sounded wrong, like it belonged in some twisted dream. "You all saw that," I said, my voice trembling just a bit. "And you're just going to sit there?" My aunt dropped her gaze to her plate. My cousin squirmed in her chair. Brandon's wife put a hand on his arm, but it was half-hearted, like she didn't even believe in it. My uncle cleared his throat, but no words came. Not one of them stood up. Not one of them spoke up for my little girl. That wasn't just silence. It was complicity, and it burned me to my core. I carried Chloe out of that house into the biting cold and buckled her into the car. We drove away, the snow falling soft and quiet around us. She didn't ask a single question. She just leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Mommy, I'm sorry." I nearly had to pull over right there on that snowy interstate. My heart broke all over again. What kind of world teaches a 6-year-old to apologize for being hit? The same world I grew up in, the one I'd spent my whole life trying to survive. But I made a vow right then and there, gripping that steering wheel, the road blurring through my tears. I would burn that world to the ground before I let it touch my daughter's future. When we got home, I tucked Chloe into bed, pressing a cold pack gently against her cheek, my fingers brushing her soft hair until her breathing slowed and she drifted off. Then, when the house was quiet, I opened my laptop, and I started writing. I wrote about the truth, about the pain, about the family I'd spent my life trying to please and the little girl who deserved so much better. I wrote to take back my voice, to break the silence, to make sure Chloe's story, her light, her worth would never be dimmed again. When I sat down to write that night, I didn't know where it was going. It started as a letter to my brother Brandon, every word dripping with the fury I'd held back for years. All the hurt, all the silence, all the times I'd bitten my tongue, it came pouring out like a river breaking a dam. But somewhere along the way, that letter turned into something bigger, something fiercer, a manifesto. I poured my heart onto that screen, writing down everything I'd never dared say out loud. The way my family's emotional manipulation twisted me into knots. The way they played favorites, lifting Brandon up while pushing me down. The quiet cruelty they dressed up as family tradition. I wrote about those painful dinners where I was humiliated in front of everyone, holidays where I was ignored, and milestones that they either dismissed or turned into failures. And then I wrote about Chloe, my bright, curious girl. The way they rolled their eyes when she asked her endless questions. The heavy sighs when she burst into song. The time my own mother snapped at her to be quiet because nobody likes noisy girls. Every word I typed was a piece of the truth, raw and unfiltered. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. The truth bled through every sentence. When I finished, I realized this wasn't just for them. I wasn't going to send it to my family and beg for their understanding. No, this was bigger. I found a parenting blog that took guest essays, and I sent it in with a title that said it all. When the ones who hurt your child share your last name. I thought maybe a handful of folks would read it. Maybe one or two would nod along, feeling a little less alone. But oh, was I wrong? That essay didn't just get read, it exploded. Within days, it was shared tens of thousands of times, read by hundreds of thousands of people. The comment section became a flood of stories, mostly from mothers, pouring out their own battles with toxic relatives. "This is the courage I needed today," one wrote. "I always thought I was the only one," said another. "I wish my mom had done what you did," a young woman shared. One comment stopped me cold. "My daughter still talks about what her grandfather said to her at age 5. She's 20 now." Reading those words, I felt my heart break and heal all at once. Strangers, people I'd never met, saw my worth in a way my own parents never had. Then came a message that changed everything. A podcast host, one I'd listened to for years, reached out. She wanted me to come on her show to talk about breaking generational cycles. I didn't hesitate. I said yes. Sitting in that studio, my hands trembling around the microphone, I spoke. Not as the broken daughter I'd been for so long, but as a mother. Not as a victim, but as a builder of something new. Something better. I told the world it's okay to walk away from your own blood if they make you bleed. That your children deserve a life free from the shadows of old hurts. After the episode aired, I got an email that made my heart stop. It was from my cousin Rachel, someone I hadn't heard from in years. "I heard what happened," she wrote. "I saw it. I had my mic on too. I have the whole thing recorded." I froze. Rachel had been part of the documentary crew filming our family reunion for some kind of time capsule project. And she had captured everything. Brandon's slap, my father's smirk, my mother's laugh, my voice standing up to them. It was all on tape. She offered to send me a copy. I didn't ask why she was helping or what it meant. I just said, yes. The file arrived the next morning. I sat at my desk, my hands shaking as I pressed play. The sound of Chloe's cry hit me like a punch. My own voice, trembling but firm, echoed back at me. And the silence, the deafening silence of everyone else who did nothing. It broke something in me all over again, but it also made everything clear. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. It was real. It happened. And now I had proof. After everything, I sat down and wrote one final message to my parents. It wasn't a plea for them to understand. It wasn't me trying to explain myself, hoping they'd finally see me. It was a statement, plain and simple, carved from the strength I'd found for my daughter, Chloe. "Until you understand why what happened was wrong," I wrote, "and until you apologize to Chloe directly, we won't be at any more family gatherings. Don't contact us unless it's to make this right. This is my boundary." I hit send, and the silence that followed wasn't a surprise. I knew they wouldn't answer. That's how they'd always been, never admitting fault, never bending. But this time, I wasn't waiting for their approval. I'd drawn a line, not in the sand where it could be washed away, but in stone, solid and unyielding. I printed that email and pinned it to the corkboard in my kitchen, right where I'd see it every morning over coffee. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a reminder, a promise to myself and to Chloe that we deserved better, that we were done living under their shadow. If you've ever had to stand up to the people who made you feel small your whole life, you know what that silence feels like. It's not defeat. It's not loss. It's the quiet before a new beginning. The moment you take back your power and start building a life that's yours. So wherever you're reading this, maybe at your kitchen table in Texas or in a quiet corner in Vermont, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to break away from family to protect your peace, to guard your heart or your child's? Drop it in the comments below. You're not alone in this. We are not alone. That audio file sat on my desktop like a silent witness, staring back at me. I'd listened to it 3 times already, and each time was like stepping back into that awful moment. The slap, my mother's laugh, my father's cold words, the room's indifference. It hurt, but I kept it close. I needed the reminder that I wasn't making this up, that the fight I was about to start wasn't just about hurt feelings. It was about truth. In the next room, Chloe was singing softly to herself, her voice light, a little tentative but free. That sound lit a fire in me. I knew what I had to do. I set up a meeting with a lawyer, a friend of a friend who knew family law and digital rights like the back of his hand. I walked into his office, a USB drive burning a hole in my pocket and a knot in my stomach. I told him everything. He listened, then asked, "Did everyone know they were being recorded?" I shook my head. It was for a documentary project. My cousin Rachel was filming, mics and cameras out in the open. They all signed waivers. He nodded, his face serious but kind. "Then you're in the clear. The audio's usable. You're not breaking any laws by sharing it, especially if it's for advocacy." That word, advocacy, hit me like a bell ringing clear and true. This wasn't just about justice for Chloe. It was for every child who's ever flinched at a family member's touch. Every woman told to hush for the sake of peace. Every person crushed under the weight of family loyalty. "I want to make sure they can't hurt anyone else," I said. He gave me a sad, knowing smile. "Then let's make a plan." That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Chloe's future. Would she grow up questioning her worth because her own family failed her? Would she carry the same invisible scars I did? I could still hear the echoes of my childhood. Slammed doors, my father calling me dramatic, my mother blaming me for crying too much. "You're too sensitive," they'd say. "Toughen up." But what they really meant was, be quiet, be small, be invisible. I wouldn't let that be Chloe's story. The next day, I called Rachel. We hadn't been close in years, but now we were like soldiers in a quiet rebellion. She didn't just offer the audio, she offered more. "I can help with production if you want to go public," she said. I know folks in media who'd listen. Together, we made a clip, short and raw, just under 2 minutes. No names, no faces, just the truth in sound. Brandon's slap, Chloe's cry, my father's cruel remark, my mother's laugh, my voice shaking but standing firm. Then, silence. And at the end, a single question on the screen. "Would you still call this tradition?" We uploaded it anonymously. Within 48 hours, it had over 1 million views. The response was like a tidal wave. People weren't just angry for Chloe, they were angry for themselves. They flooded the comments with their own stories, slaps they'd endured, silences they'd survived, wounds they'd carried. Parenting forums shared it. Advocacy groups reached out. A nonprofit focused on emotional abuse in families asked to collaborate on a series about stories like mine. One morning, a message popped up from a parenting influencer I'd followed for years. "Your clip broke my heart and gave me hope," she wrote. "Can we talk?" We did, for hours, and suddenly the conversation wasn't just about my family anymore. It was about our families, our hidden hurts, our quiet holidays, our whispered pain. Then came the fallout. Brandon's employer, a group that worked with kids, got anonymous tips about the clip. He was put on leave while they investigated. My father, once a big name in his small community, faced an online petition to boot him from a local board. My mother? She deleted her social media after one of her fake, flowery posts about kindness got swarmed with comments calling out her hypocrisy. Through it all, my family stayed silent, except for one message. It was from my mother. "How could you do this to your own family?" I stared at those words, my heart pounding. Then I typed a reply. "You did this." I just gave it a microphone. I didn't send it. Not because it wasn't true, but because I didn't need to. I'd already said enough. The video kept gaining steam. Advocacy groups wanted interviews. Rachel and I started planning a series called Uninvited But Free, a place for survivors of toxic families to speak their truth. One afternoon, as Chloe and I sat at a park, a woman in her 60s approached us, her smile gentle but sure. "Are you the woman from the audio clip?" she asked. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." She knelt near Chloe, keeping her distance, and said, "Sweetheart, you are so brave. Don't ever forget that." Then she looked at me, her eyes soft with understanding. "I wish my mother had been like you." I didn't know what to say. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. That night, as I tucked Chloe into bed, her little voice broke the quiet. "Mommy," she asked, her eyes searching mine, "is it okay to not love people who hurt you?" My throat tightened, and I had to take a deep breath to keep my voice steady. "Yes, sweetheart," I whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It's more than okay." Not long after, a cease and desist letter landed in my inbox, sent by my parents' lawyer. I wasn't surprised. I'd been expecting something like it, a last-ditch effort to shut me up. My lawyer read it, shook his head, and sent back a single line. "We have not violated any laws." That was that. But that letter did something else. It showed me they were watching. They were rattled. Not because I had some big power over them, but because I'd done something they never expected. I told the truth. The real turning point came later, at a school board meeting. A parent, someone I'd never met, had submitted our audio clip as evidence. My brother Brandon had been running a mentorship program for teens, acting like a role model while hiding what he'd done. The board members sat in silence as the clip played. Brandon's slap, Chloe's cry, my father's cold remark, my mother's laugh, and my voice, trembling but firm. When it ended, the room stayed quiet for a full minute, the kind of silence that carries weight. Then one board member spoke up, their voice heavy. "We owe those kids better." That was it. Brandon was fired. The next day, a headline hit the local news. "Youth mentor terminated following viral audio clip." No names were mentioned, but everyone knew who it was about. I walked into Chloe's room that evening. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, drawing with her crayons, humming softly. On the paper were stick figures holding hands under a wobbly, bright yellow sun. "Mommy, do you want to see my happy family?" she asked, her eyes sparkling. I nodded, swallowing hard to keep the tears at bay. "I do, sweetheart." She handed me the drawing. It was just us, me and her, with a shaggy dog she dreamed of adopting one day. No grandparents, no uncles, just our little world, full of love. "Is this okay?" she asked, her voice small but hopeful. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight. "It's more than okay, Chloe. It's perfect." And it was. In that moment, I knew we were building something new, something free from the pain of the past. So, wherever you're reading this, maybe at a cozy table in Colorado or a quiet porch in South Carolina, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been told that family is forever, even when it hurts? Have you ever risked your name, your peace, your history to protect your child's future? Drop it in the comments below. 3 years had slipped by, and there I was, standing in the bright sunlit atrium of our nonprofit's new headquarters. Uninvited but free had grown into something I never could have dreamed up. A safe haven in 10 cities, filled with art from survivors, cozy chairs, and shelves stacked with children's books about finding strength in tough times. We were working with therapists, teachers, and women who'd been told to hush for far too long. This was our space, built on truth and healing, not secrets or show. I'd just come back from Geneva, where I spoke at a UN panel on intergenerational trauma. Chloe, my now 9-year-old firecracker, came along, sitting front row, proudly showing her drawings of our dog, Marshmallow, to the interpreter. She was growing into herself. Confident, kind, and unapologetically Chloe. Together, we'd built a new world, one where love meant safety, not performance. Then came the article, tucked deep in the local paper's community section. Former mentor arrested in domestic violence dispute. Brandon. Again. No audio this time. Just bruises and a court date. I didn't feel triumphant or smug. I just felt tired, but also sure. Sure that walking away, choosing the harder, lonelier path, had been right. That path led us here, surrounded by people who knew what real love felt like. My father's health took a turn after a stroke. He was quietly removed from his community board. No fanfare, just whispers. The paper didn't mention the audio, but the online comments did. My mother? She never went back to social media. She stayed home, mostly alone. My cousin Rachel sent me a photo once. My mother at a church fundraiser, sitting by herself, looking older than her years. They had each other, and they had their silence. That was their choice. One afternoon, while Chloe was at soccer practice, a handwritten letter arrived from Rachel. It read, "Amber, you didn't just speak for Chloe. You spoke for me too. I spent years thinking my voice didn't matter. Watching you change that. Thank you for giving the rest of us permission to leave what hurt us. Love, Rachel." I framed that letter and set it on my desk, a quiet reminder of the ripple we'd started. At our nonprofit's 5th anniversary gala, I stood on stage in a midnight blue gown, the room buzzing with over 200 supporters. Chloe, in her first pair of sparkly heels, gave the opening speech, her voice clear and bright. The crowd leapt to their feet, clapping like thunder. I couldn't stop smiling. After, a woman approached me, tears shining in her eyes. "My daughter left an abusive home because of your story," she said, her voice trembling. "She's safe now. She's healing. Thank you." I took her hands in mine, my heart full. "That's all the legacy I ever wanted," I told her. Later, as Chloe and I rode home in a sleek black town car, she leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you think they miss us?" she asked softly. I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Maybe," I said, "but missing someone doesn't mean they're safe to have in your life." She nodded, thoughtful. "I don't miss them. I just wonder if they ever learned." I kissed the top of her head. "Some people do, sweetheart. Some don't. But we did, and that's what counts." Picture this final scene. Our little house by the lake, warm lights glowing, the wooden deck alive with the laughter of friends over dinner. Chloe's out there, giggling as she tosses a ball for Marshmallow, our shaggy rescue dog. Me, Amber, once silenced, once betrayed. Now thriving. Not because I got revenge, but because peace tastes so much sweeter. Those who laughed at us once, they've faded into the quiet corners of their own consequences. But us? We've built a life too loud, too joyful, too free to ever be silenced again. To everyone reading this, family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who clap when you heal. So, wherever you're joining us from, maybe a cozy living room in Michigan or a sunny porch in Texas, drop a comment and let us know where you're at. Has Amber's story inspired you to find your own voice or build your own family of choice? If it's touched your heart, hit that like button, subscribe to Hidden Family Revenge Stories, and tap the bell icon so you never miss our next video. Your support helps us keep sharing stories like this, and we're so grateful to have you as part of our family. It was a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind that wraps you in a warm hug after a long day. I'd just finished scrubbing the last of the dinner dishes, the scent of lemon dish soap still lingering in the air. Out on the porch, Chloe was brushing Marshmallow's shaggy fur, her giggles mixing with the soft lapping of the lake, glowing golden under the fading sunlight. Moments like these felt like treasures, hard-earned after everything we'd been through. Then the phone buzzed on the counter, jarring the peace. I glanced at the screen and froze. Unknown caller, Cityville, Washington. My heart gave a little lurch. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something, call it a gut feeling, call it unfinished business, made me pick up. "Hello?" I said, my voice cautious. A long pause stretched out, heavy and thick. Then a soft, trembling voice broke through. "Hi, is this Amber?" "Yes," I answered, my grip tightening on the phone. "Who's this?" Another pause, then a shaky breath. I'm Madison, Rachel's daughter. I don't know if you remember me." Oh, I remembered. Madison, That quiet little girl from the family reunion, only 10 years old back then. Always hovering in the background, her wide, watchful eyes taking in everything, missing nothing. I could still picture her, sitting at the edge of the chaos, seeing what others ignored. Madison, I said softly, my voice warming. Of course I remember you. Are you okay? A sob broke through the line, sharp and raw, like a dam giving way. No, she whispered. I don't know who else to call. I found your name in a story online. You help people who come from families that hurt them, right? I closed my eyes, the weight of her words settling over me like a familiar ache. The past wasn't done with me yet. It never really is. Tell me what happened, I said, my voice steady but gentle, ready to listen. For the next hour, I sat there, listening as Madison poured out her heart, her voice like a thread pulled loose from a tightly wound spool. Every word carried years of hurt, and I could feel the weight of it through the phone. Rachel, my cousin, the one who'd sent me that heartfelt letter years ago, thanking me for giving her courage, hadn't stayed free. Or maybe she'd never truly broken away. After our family fell apart, she went back to her small town, married a man everyone thought was the picture of charm, and buried her voice all over again. And poor Madison, her sweet, sensitive daughter, became the target for all the pain Rachel hadn't faced. She says I embarrass her, Madison whispered, her voice barely holding together. She calls me too soft, makes fun of me for crying over sad books. Yesterday, she locked me out of the house for talking back. And it started pouring rain. She said I needed to learn what it's like to feel cold. My stomach churned, a sick feeling rising up. I'd heard those kinds of words before, felt that kind of cruelty dressed up as tough love. It was all too familiar. Have you told anyone else? I asked gently. Maybe a teacher? They don't believe me, she said, her voice small. Mom's a nurse. Everyone thinks she's this sweet, overworked single mom just trying her best. Oh, I knew that mask. I'd worn it myself, and I'd seen others wear it like a second skin, hiding their sharp edges behind a smile the world trusted. Madison, I said softly, would you feel safe coming here, just for a few days? There was a long pause, her breath shaky. I don't want to get her in trouble, she said. But I don't want to hate her either. My heart ached for her, caught in that impossible place between love and survival. You're allowed to love someone and still need to be safe, I told her. It's not betrayal to protect yourself. When we hung up, I sat at the kitchen counter, staring at the lake through the window, its surface still and dark now. Marshmallow, our shaggy dog, whined at my feet, nudging my leg like he could sense the storm in my heart. I rested my hand on his head, but my mind was racing. The past wasn't just knocking, it was kicking the door down. 3 days later, Madison stepped off the bus and into our lives. Rachel, her mother, never called, not once. Not to check on her, not to explain, not even to argue. Just silence. Chloe, my sweet 9-year-old, had made a welcome sign, all bright colors and glitter, and proudly offered Madison a plate of lemon cookies, still warm from the oven. Madison, now taller but with shadows under her eyes, walked into our lakeside home like someone stepping out of a long gray winter into sunlight for the first time. Her shoulders were hunched, her steps cautious, but there was a spark in her eyes like she was daring to hope. That night, after a simple dinner, we gathered by the crackling fire in the living room. The glow danced across our faces as Madison started to talk, her words coming in bits and pieces about school, the books she loved, the things she missed but couldn't quite name. Then, like a dam breaking, she started to cry. I used to think something was wrong with me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Like, if I could just be better, Mom would be nicer. I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. I thought that too, Madison, I said. For a long, long time. Chloe, sitting cross-legged on the rug, looked up with those wise eyes of hers. You don't have to be perfect to be loved, she said softly, her voice steady and sure. We let the silence settle over us, not heavy or cold, but warm, like a soft blanket wrapping us together. In that moment, we weren't just a woman and two girls. We were a little family, piecing ourselves back together. Over the next few weeks, I watched Madison come alive. She helped Chloe paint a mural for our community center, splashing bright colors across the wall, laughing as paint speckled their cheeks. She sat with survivors from our uninvited but free programs, listening to their stories, her eyes wide with recognition. She started writing poems, leaving them on my desk like quiet gifts. One of them stopped me in my tracks. I thought silence was safe until your voice found me. I tucked that poem into my heart, right next to Chloe's drawings and Rachel's letter from years ago. One quiet morning, a plain envelope arrived in the mail. No return address, just my name scrawled across the front in a handwriting I'd know anywhere. Rachel's. I opened it with a heavy heart, unsure what I'd find. The letter was short, but every word carried weight. Amber, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect understanding. But I heard Madison left, and I'm not calling to take her back. I failed her. And I failed you too. When you stood up back then, I should have stood beside you. Instead, I laughed along. If she finds peace with you, let her stay. Just tell her I'm sorry. It wasn't enough to erase the past, but it was something. A crack in the wall of silence Rachel had built around herself. I held the letter, feeling the ache of what could have been, and then I took it to Madison. She read it slowly, her eyes tracing each line. Then, without a word, she folded it neatly in half and handed it back. I don't hate her, she said, her voice steady but soft. But I'm not ready. That's okay, I told her, resting a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to be. A month later, we filed for temporary guardianship, and Madison stayed. She and Chloe became two peas in a pod, reading adventure books under the covers, hiking by the lake, baking lopsided cakes, and painting murals that burst with color. They even started joking that Marshmallow, our shaggy rescue dog, now had two moms to spoil him rotten. At one of our uninvited but free retreats, Madison took a deep breath and stepped up to the open mic. She shared her poem, her voice trembling at first but growing stronger with every line. The room was still, except for the soft sniffles of women wiping their eyes. One leaned over and whispered, "That used to be me." That night, as we sat under the stars, Madison looked at me, her eyes bright despite the darkness. You know, she said, I think I'm starting to believe I was never broken. Just bruised. I pulled her into a hug, holding her close, my heart swelling with pride and love for this brave girl finding her way. Years from now, Madison might sit down and write her own story. She might choose to reach out to her mother, or she might not. She might find forgiveness in her heart, or she might decide to let go and move on. That's her journey to make, when she's ready. But for now, she's safe. She's healing. She's home. And me, Amber, once broken by the family I was born into, I've become a soft place to land for someone else, a chance for a new beginning. I never thought I'd be that person, but here I am, building a family not bound by blood, but by love and trust. This isn't just a bonus chapter in our story. It's the next generation rising, stepping out of the shadows and into their own light. To everyone reading this, whether you're curled up in a cozy armchair in Missouri or watching the sunset from a porch in California, thank you for being here. Your presence means the world to us. If Amber and Madison's journey has moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe to Hidden Family Revenge Stories, and tap the bell icon so you never miss the next chapter. Drop your own story in the comments below. Have you ever chosen your own family, or helped someone rewrite their ending? We are the family we choose, and together we're writing a new kind of story, one where love wins and healing sets us free. Thank you for being part of our Hidden Family Revenge Stories family. All right, folks, before you head off, let's hit pause for a moment. Take a deep breath with me, will you? These next 5 minutes are yours. A little pocket of calm in a noisy world. A chance to sit still, to let your heart catch up, to just be. If it feels right, go ahead and close your eyes. Let the soft melodies we're about to share wrap around you like a warm blanket. You've carried so much to get here. You've earned this quiet. So let's listen, together. A little heart to heart. From me to you, some nights the quiet feels like a gift, doesn't it? Like the world's holding its breath, giving you space to breathe. Other nights, that same silence can feel heavy, like it's shouting back memories you'd rather not hear. I don't have a guidebook for life's big questions. All I've got is my story. Full of cracks, a little messy, but slowly coming back together, stitch by stitch. People often ask me, Amber, how'd you know it was time to walk away? Truth is, I didn't know. I just felt it in my bones. If I stayed, I'd lose myself. Little by little, I'd fade until there was nothing left of me. You don't wake up one day and decide to flip your whole world upside down. No, you wake up worn out, scared, clinging to the last shred of your dignity, barely holding on. But sometimes that tiny shred is enough to pull you through. Sometimes healing starts with a single, quiet choice. I can't do this anymore. I'll never forget the first night after I left. Just me and my little girl, Chloe, in a bare-bones apartment. No furniture, just a mattress on the floor and a single lamp casting soft shadows. Chloe fell asleep holding my hand, her tiny fingers curled tight around mine. I stayed up all night, tears streaming down my face. Not because I regretted my choice, but because I was finally letting myself feel everything I'd buried for years. You want to know what healing really looks like? It's not always grand or pretty. Sometimes it's just listening to that small voice inside you for the first time in ages. It's saying, I'm terrified, and answering yourself, that's all right. We'll keep going anyway. Healing can look like serving oatmeal for dinner because it's all you've got the energy for. It's wearing the same sweater 3 days straight because you're too tired to care. But you keep showing up. For yourself, for your kids, for the simple, stubborn pride of making it through another day. To anyone out there who's still in the thick of it, still stuck in the middle of the mess, hear me. It's not too late. You're not too far gone. Your voice, your heart, your story, they still matter. You don't owe anybody a reason for choosing peace. You don't have to be perfect to deserve something better. And you are allowed, yes, allowed to walk away, to change, to grow, to build a life that feels like home. For years, I thought I was only worth loving if I stayed small, stayed quiet, stayed useful. But you know what I've learned? The real truth? I was always enough, just as I am. And so are you. Thank you for letting me share a piece of my heart with you. For letting my story sit beside yours, even just for a moment. This isn't the end. It's the start of a new page, when we get to write together. So keep speaking up, keep being kind, and above all, keep chasing your freedom. With all my love, Amber.